It's a completely different culture. And I find myself scrolling, translating comments from people on the film and trying to work out what are they saying. Do they like it? Do they not like it? Fortunately, a lot of the stuff has been, most of it, all of it has been positive. And it's quite interesting how Irish humour is somehow able to translate literally on the other side of the world to a completely different culture and still resonate.
That was the voice of Declan Curran, co-star, writer and producer of Dear Imelda, a beautiful and whimsical short film set in Northern Ireland. I'm Martin Nutty, and you're listening to the Irish Stew podcast. This episode was recorded in association with the Capital Irish Film Festival. A big thank you to Solas Nua, Washington, D.C.'s wonderful Irish arts organisation and hosts of that festival. They kindly invited me to record 4 episodes featuring some of the best work of contemporary Irish filmmakers. Irish Stew is proud to partner with Irish Central, the trusted source for Irish news, history, travel, opinion and cultural information. Please visit irishcentral.com for all the latest from Ireland and its diaspora. Finally, you'll notice the absence of my co-host John Lee in this episode. Sadly, John's older brother Daniel Lee passed away shortly before our DC departure. Dan had suffered through a long illness, but the end came abruptly. He was a lifelong educator and leader in independent school education. John tells me Dan's nickname in the family was the Irish King. And so these episodes have been made in the Irish King's memory. May he rest in peace. Now, on to Declan Curran.
Hi everybody, I'm joined by Declan Curran, who is the creative force behind a short film that will be featured in the Capital Irish Film Festival called Dear Imelda. Welcome, Declan. I understand you just got in last night. How was the trip over from County Down?
The trip has been lovely so far, Martin, you're right. Yeah, landed in yesterday afternoon and within an hour and a half was here into the centre of DC, so first time here.
Tell me a little bit about your film background. How did you get involved in this game? You're from County Down. Talk to me a little bit about your background in the film industry. I understand this is now your 4th short film.
4th short film.
So how did you get started?
I didn't get started on short films. They didn't come around for a while. So I had initially got started on YouTube, and this was in the days before there were YouTubers or any money involved in YouTube. I was just making comedy sketches with a friend in school with a camera. That was it. That's how I started. It was basically a lot of improv. We posted online, got a decent reaction from the rest of the students and other schools, and I thought, look, maybe there's something to this. And I think that for me struck a bit of a chord in an interest in creating things. And I'd grown up watching the likes of Pat Short and John Kenny and Unbelievables and all of that, and Father Ted, all of these Irish-based comedy shows and sketch shows, and it inspired me to hopefully one day create and promote my own material. And eventually that led me on to some amateur theatre, and then nothing at all for years. And then I really wanted to get back into it, and I tried to get an acting agent, but I couldn't because I didn't have any film experience. I didn't have any show reels or material. So then I just decided to make my own debut short film in 2020 in the midst of COVID-19 lockdown, and then that kicked off the start of 4 films.
I've heard of a lot of creative stories emerging out of COVID for want of something else better to do. Indeed, actually, the Irish Stew podcast was a product of
that's
COVID,
where that came from, right?
Although it had been in the planning stages,
Right.
but it actually changed the trajectory of things, because originally we had planned on doing all our interviews in person, just like we are in the lobby of the Marriott Hotel in Silver Spring right now.
Yeah.
But it sounds like to me that you didn't go the classical route, if you will, of somebody that wanted to get involved in the acting/film making business. A lot of times in America, people end up going to film school or they go to drama programs in universities.
Yeah.
So that's not your track at all.
Not at all. I come from a rural place in the Mourne Mountains, a little village called Attycall. Pursuing an ambition or a dream like that just wasn't the norm. So I studied housing. That's what I qualified in. I got a degree in housing management and everything else creatively.
This is the reason why housing hasn't been fixed in Ireland yet, because you got distracted.
Because I'm busy on the evenings and weekends. So yeah, I've been trying my best to keep that passion alive and scratch that creative itch ever since graduating.
So you started off in YouTube, then you step away from it.
Yeah.
Then you boomerang back during COVID.
Yes.
So talk to me about that. What was the genesis of the first idea and how did you put those pieces together?
I suppose the first film came about, it was a friend of mine, Matthew Sharp, also a fellow actor, had recommended that I tried to make something myself. So I started writing a short film, which was absolutely terrible. And it was only through writing that terrible short that I came up with the concept for my first film, which was Shane. And then I took scribbles on paper, brought it to my cousin Arón Holden, and because he'd worked in the film industry, he was a camera assistant at the time, and I came down for some advice on how to make a short film because he'd made a few of them himself by then. And it was only through him then that I was able to get in touch with a cinematographer, a sound person, makeup artists, costume designers, set designers, that type of thing. And I'd made a no-budget short film with just my family. My uncle played my dad. We used his cottage as the location. We used his farm animals. We used his dog. We used his tractor. Everything. We just made this for nothing. And once I was finished that film, I didn't really know what to do with it. I kind of just thought, oh, maybe I'll just put it on the internet straight away. But it was Arón had recommended that I try the festival circuit, this thing I didn't know existed. So you've got a film festival circuit that you can submit your work to for consideration. You have to pay each festival to consider your work, and they'll give you a yes or a no. And if you get a yes, then you might be fortunate enough to be invited out to the festival to attend it and to see your work in person and to experience that with an audience for the first time, which is just a real magical moment, because when you first start making these things, that end goal is light years apart. They couldn't be further apart. So it's a bittersweet moment to sit and watch that.
So how many submissions did you have to make before somebody said yes?
I can't remember for my first film, but this film, Dear Imelda, that I'm in here for at the moment, I think we're sat on 35 rejections right now from festivals around the world. So it isn't all glamour. There's a lot of rejection, but at this stage now, the rejection for me is just like water off the duck's back. I'm so used to it, and you have to face it to get to where you want to be. And it hasn't been all doom and gloom. Like, this is already an award-winning short film. We won runner-up, Best Irish Short Film at Foyle Film Festival in Derry in December. And we've got international distribution with Network Ireland Television. So it's been an up and down journey, and at times we've thought, oh, is this really going to go anywhere? Whenever you're facing a lot of no's. But it's important just to persevere and believe in your own work, and then whenever you're sat with an audience and they're enjoying the film, it just makes it all worthwhile.
So for most casual film goers, I'm old enough to remember actually going to the movie theatre in Dublin and seeing a short film before a feature. That distribution no longer exists anymore. No. So why would somebody go to the trouble of making a short film rather than go the whole hog of doing a feature film?
A debut feature film is extremely difficult and would not be obtainable because of the amount of work involved from everybody in front and behind the camera. It's going to be time consuming. You're going to have commitment from a lot of people. The thing with a short film is that you can make a short film in a day if you wanted to, or half a day if you wanted to. You can borrow friends as actors, you can borrow a location, you can borrow crew. It's a lot of favours. And you can create something fairly easily and fairly quickly, and I suppose collaborate with new people, and it won't cost you the world. Whereas a feature film could be a 2-week minimum shoot. You're going to have to pay people for the commitment of just making sure that they show up every day, otherwise you're going to have maybe missing people, and then you're trying to rewrite around that. So the short films really are a very good introduction into the film industry, and a stepping stone and a good learning experience, because on every short I've done, I continue to learn something all the time. And you're working with new people. You're figuring out new tricks from in front and behind the camera. So I found it just a really nice collaborative process on each occasion. And that's why I would recommend tackling a short film before you tackle a feature. I'm yet to tackle a feature. Inevitably, that's what I want to do next. And it's only when now that I feel like I'm ready to make that leap. But it is a massive leap from the short film world to feature world, just with everything that's involved there.
Your current short film, Dear Imelda,
Yeah.
features Rose Henderson, who's well known to viewers of the Father Ted TV series.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the film, how that came together, what the goals were, and
This was a short film that came around whilst myself and my cousin Arón, we directed the short. We were both down in Skull in Cork at Fastnet Film Festival, and we were sat one morning having breakfast, and I had this epiphany while sat at breakfast watching Arón eat his eggs. And I thought, what about a short film about a nanny and her grandson who are thrown into each other's worlds? It goes against both their plans.
a nanny in this case being an Irish grandmother as opposed to
Irish
somebody-
grandmother instead of a childminder.
a child
Yeah,
mother, yes.
So that's where the idea came from. And then I had thought about that for the next day or so while in Cork. And then as soon as I got home, I just started writing it. But the thing is, we were listening to music on the way down the road from Belfast, where I'm living at the minute, from Belfast to Cork. We were basically listening to this.
Good long drive.
It was a long drive, but we were listening to a playlist all the way down, which consisted of the uilleann pipes and a lot of Irish trad music. And that's what really helped me write. Whenever I got home, I just continued to listen, and I know the song that I was listening to. And I just listened to it and listened to it. And it just allowed me to write just very easily. And then once I'd formed the script, I had racked my brain about who I could approach to play this leading lady of Imelda. And I recalled that I'd already bumped into Rose Henderson at a film festival on Achill Island a couple of years previous. And she candidly said to me, look, if you're ever making something, would keep me in mind. And I just thought she was being nice, to be honest with you. And I thought, look, I'll send her a message and see if it's something she'll consider. So myself and Arón hopped in the car, headed down to Dublin because she was doing a one-woman show called Vixen at the time. And we went down, cut that, met her afterwards for a drink, and I presented her with the script and asked her if she'd consider it. And she went off for a couple of days and then came back and said that she loved it and that she'd like to get involved with us. And we just went from there. So we were just so fortunate to be able to get her. And I would have only got Rose having attended a film festival for a completely different film, obviously, some years earlier. And I'd done 2 shorts in between those 2 films. So it just goes to show you just never know who you're going to bump into.
Yeah, it was the virtue of meeting in the round is what I will say,
Yeah.
call it. I think
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of us have retreated behind screens.
Yeah,
And there's nothing like the happenstance of all being thrown in a room together
absolutely.
and interacting and just getting that opportunity to make connections that you would never have anticipated.
Yeah.
You mentioned in our preamble before we hit the record button that you didn't have any kind of government support, etc., in making this film. So talk to me about putting those pieces together.
So in the north, there is not a lot of funding opportunities, unfortunately, for short films. In the south, you've got Screen Ireland and RTE, and then a lot of the local councils may have grants available. In the north, you have Northern Ireland Screen, and you have the Arts Council. Now, I've had one of my shorts funded by the Arts Council, which was a pretty modest amount. I think it's around 2,000 sterling, which isn't a lot when it comes to a short film. You're paying people, but it's not really their day rate. It's, again, people are just doing it as favours more so than anything. So you've 2 funders in the north. You've a lot of people applying for that funding, and naturally, some people are going to lose out. With this film, I knew that we wanted to shoot it in September of 2023, and that I didn't have the luxury of submitting to funding bodies for a funding application, funding application is extremely intensive. You have to have your cast confirmed, your crew confirmed, your locations confirmed, your budget completed, your shot list completed. A lot of stuff you have to have everything ready to go, so it's fairly time consuming. And then obviously it's a bit of a letdown if a no comes through eventually, because you're thinking, I could have had this thing shot by now. So that's exactly what we did. We just decided to shoot this ourselves, mainly just for the purposes of time, because we knew what film we wanted to create. Arón directed this, I wrote it, we both collaborated as co-producers on it, and it was our first real collaboration. Aaron's done his own work, I've done my own work, and this was our first time coming together. And we're two fellas that have grown up together. There's 3 days separate us, we're first cousins. He would be the closest thing to a brother that I've ever had. So the collaboration has just felt very natural, and we'd hope that translated across to the people that we were working with and that they enjoyed the experience. So we'd shot it, put our own money into it, and at one stage even we had to take out a Monzo loan, which was, I think, was just shy of about 10 grand, just so we could cover people's expenses and pay them and cover the catering bills and stuff like that there, and the post-production side of things, because you can't forget just how much you have to depend on a fantastic colour grader and sound mixer and a composer. And we've been so lucky to collaborate with a fantastic multi-instrumentalist called Tara Howley, who's absolutely viral in Ireland. She plays about 15 instruments. Right now she's in California touring with Nathan Carter. So she tours all around the world. She toured with Riverdance all around the world, working with them. And we were just so lucky to get her. And I managed to get her just by sending an email that I had ticked off my list and said, look, we've sent it and tried. Nothing's ever going to come back about this. And to our surprise, she came back and said yes. And when I say she is the most talented person I've ever met, and she's so modest about the whole thing, she doesn't even truly realise it. But just the collaboration on this has been fantastic for us. And that's something we might not have experienced if we hadn't undertaken the sort of self-funding route on this. Those decisions may have been made by other people, whereas we've been able to control every aspect of this thing, from the turning over of the camera until the final export.
Can I ask what that number ended up being to actually make a screen-ready film?
It's still going. With every film submission, we're still spending money. I couldn't even tell you a figure at the minute. We've probably spent about, I'd say, like 15 grand on this short film, which is nothing. When we were at Foyle Film Festival in Derry, the films we were up against there had been massive budgets, like 15 grand wouldn't have even looked at the money that was invested in these things. But again, it just comes down to the story and how much heart you can insert into something, and you can't budget for heart. So we've just been very lucky with the music and with the actors and with the crew on this project, and we see it more so as an investment than anything. That the money invested in this thing, we're hoping to use this project to continue these relationships with people that we've been lucky enough to work with, and also to work with new collaborators. So that's how we're looking at the project at the moment.
And you mentioned up front that you now have distribution
Yep.
of the film internationally.
Yeah.
I was curious about what that looks like in terms of markets. As I mentioned earlier, there used to be a time when people would go to the movie theater and actually see shorts. It's no longer the case, obviously. So YouTube seems to be like a platform that people might distribute this work on, but you're doing something else, as I understand it.
It all comes down to views now. So a feature film could be sold and it could be shown at the cinema because it's a 90-minute movie at least. Short films, a short film can be up to 45 minutes. I can't remember the last time I've ever watched a short film that was 45 minutes. Generally, these things are anywhere from 5 until maybe 25 minutes. So for that reason, the audience is somewhat limited. So they mainly will end up on streaming platforms or in-flight entertainment on airlines, which is an ideal situation. We have been very fortunate that we've now been acquired by Network Ireland Television, who are based out of Dublin. And those guys have just been fantastic. And they've been assisting us with some festivals also. They've been taking care of that themselves and trying to assist us in being seen more places. And what they'll do is then, now that they've acquired the film, they will approach buyers and attempt to sell the project to different areas of the world. And at the minute, we've one that's almost over the line, and I can't say anything about it properly, but it will be our first initial sale for a period of a year, and hopefully that continues in other areas, and the film's able to be seen in places around the world and also on airlines. Yesterday I was travelling over and I was sat on an Aer Lingus flight and I sat and watched all the Irish shorts, a lot of stuff that I hadn't got the chance to see. And it's a lovely moment whenever you're able to see the work from other people that you know, because I'm able to appreciate just the amount of work that's been involved to get to that moment. So it's a great thing to see. For just the talent in Ireland is absolutely insane. There at the minute, there was 15 short films that were shortlisted for the Oscars this year. 2 of them were Irish. For such a small little country, the talent is insane. And I watched both of those films yesterday on the Aer Lingus, and they're fantastic shorts, and they definitely deserve to be there. So, yeah.
Yes, it feels like to me that Ireland is pretty much a hothouse right now for all sorts of creative endeavors.
Yeah.
Obviously, a long history in the literary world, but it seems to be exploding now into the realm of film. But tell me about your plans going forward now.
At the minute, it feels like I've been living and breathing this film promotion-wise for the last year. We had our world premiere at the Chicago Irish Film Festival this time last year. And then the weekend after that, I flew down to New York and we screened at Crackfest. And then I was home for about 10 days and then I flew up to the Toronto Irish Film Festival. And that's been the end of our North American festivals until now. So now that this has been acquired, the festival run for us is naturally coming to a stop. We've still some festivals that we're yet to hear back from, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to attend those, and we'll be in Brussels in Belgium at an Irish-based film festival in April, which will be lovely. But besides that, it's now the time for myself and Arón to move on to the features, because he's done about 8 of these shorts and I've done 4 of them. And we've seen a lot of features in the festivals that we've attended, and we're able to see what we think is achievable. Whether or not we choose to go through a funding body or tackle this feature as an unfunded debut feature, which would be a massive undertaking, there's no doubt about that. And I wouldn't enter into something like that lightly. But for us, it is leaning towards the feature. He's written about 4 features at the minute. One of them is sat with a producer in Dublin at the minute who's running his eye over things to see if they can locate a funder who'd be the right fit for that project. And then we're hoping to shoot something in Belfast later this year, which would be a bit more run and gun. And that's maybe what is going to lean towards something that we'll just fund ourselves just to get started, because this time next year we'd love to be back at festivals again. And the further we get into the year here, the more unlikely that is to happen because of just the amount of work involved in post-production on these things. So for me, naturally the shift is into the feature films. I do write, and I only ever started writing because I needed to create that initial short film for myself, to get a show reel, to get an agent. And then I got an acting agent, which was great. It was a full circle moment for me, and I was getting self-tapes for a lot of stuff. But unfortunately, I just wasn't getting a lot of stuff. And I still want to act. I don't always want to have to depend on my own work to make that happen. So I'd love to be involved in more stuff as an actor instead of the producer and the writer, because it'd be nice to focus on just that thing for once instead of everything that comes with it.
So, with that, I'd like to say thank you, and to make sure that people, when they get on Aer Lingus, hopefully at some point in the future, they will see Dear Imelda.
Yeah.
I'll be looking forward to seeing it in the upcoming days at the Capital Irish Film Festival. And I'd like to thank Declan Curran on behalf of myself and all our Irish Stew listeners. So thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you.
Hey, it's Martin. Usually at this point we roll the credits, but in listening back to this episode during the editing process, I thought it would be interesting to track Declan's progress since the Capital Irish Film Festival, and to get his impressions of the Washington, D.C. experience we shared together. So, over to Belfast for a follow-up conversation with Declan. So I'm delighted to be joined again by Declan Curran. 3 months since we recorded our initial conversation at the Capital Irish Film Festival. So welcome back to Irish Stew, Declan.
Thank you very much, Martin. It's lovely to be back on with you.
But I'm curious, about your impressions when you visited DC and the Capital Irish Film Festival. How did that match up with other experiences on the film festival circuit?
I think for your first film festival, Martin, you've really spoiled yourself, because the guys at Solas Nua know how to throw a film festival. Just from the off, they were on the ball throughout that entire 4 or 5 days. I had a blast. It was my first time ever in DC, and I've been quite fortunate to travel to quite a decent amount of Irish-based film festivals, both nationally and internationally. And all of them are similar in some ways and a little different in some ways. But I have to say, the 4 or 5 days in DC for me were just a joy, especially collaborating and meeting the other filmmakers. And it's a little crazy that you have to travel to somewhat the other side of the world to meet people that are, an hour or so down the road from you. So I had a great time in DC. I would definitely love to go back. And I just think the guys just run an incredible festival.
So I'm curious, there were a lot of late nights during the film festival. We'd have showings starting in the morning and would go right through into the evening. But after that, we all repaired to the hotel where many of us were staying.
Yeah.
And we ended up 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, mixing it up with everybody, telling war stories and impressions. Is that the normal gig during a film festival, or is that somewhat unique?
I think during the film festival, people will generally go out for a couple of drinks after, but they wouldn't usually. Sometimes people are split up accommodation-wise. People will stay a bit out of the city or a bit further away, and you don't usually get everybody together again. This was a real close unit, and Maeve McCullough, who runs the Capital Irish Film Festival, along with the other guys, just made it very welcoming for everybody and a real nice atmosphere. So whenever we went to the bars and then would come back and just sit in the lobby and continue the chat and mingle into the early hours and just chatting about nothing other than filmmaking. And it was nothing more than that. It was just creatives chatting about their lives, about their aspirations, what they've done, who they would love to work with, and about the possibility of collaborating together. And I didn't get tired of that at all over the course of 4 nights. And I think there's a photo circulating of me passed out asleep on the sofa in the lobby at about 4:30 in the morning. And there's nowhere else I would have rather been.
Yeah, it was really a good time. And curious, from all those interactions, did you walk away with any new ideas as a result of that, or was it just simply the opportunity to connect with other people? Is there a possibility maybe you'll do a project with somebody else, or what was your outcomes on that front?
Oh, there was definitely ideas flowing from the off. So I tried to make a point to see at least a couple of things every day, whether that have been a short film or an animation or a feature film, and just getting to see how people operate and chatting to them in person after the screening. The likes of this year, they had massive guests, the likes of David Keenan, who I'm actually going to meet next week when he's in Belfast. And this is a guy I've listened to for years, a musician from Dundalk. And just through this connection at Capital Irish Film Festival, now, I'm able to meet up with him and chat over here. And again, it's just one of those things where it wouldn't have happened if both of us hadn't attended that film festival. You had Hazel Dupe, Eva Berthistle, and their feature film, Kathleen Is Here. Just seeing what's possible with minimal locations, especially within feature films, which sometimes will need massive budgets and commitments from cast and crew and things. So I came away with a sea of contacts that I've been able to send my work on to, and hopefully they're able to check it out. And look, it just makes it one step closer to hopefully seeing people down the road and being able to recall, where you've met them before, which is much, much easier than a cold call or a cold email.
I'm struck by your statement that you had to go all the way to DC to meet filmmakers that live just down the road for you. Does that indicate maybe that there is some kind of gap let's say, in the film networking process, which kind of draw people together? Or is it just simply that everybody is generally so busy that they can't get together and spitball ideas, really? Because that seemed like a lot of what was going on. Is there a missed opportunity there to even stimulate the Irish film business even more, which seems to be incredibly productive from my perspective?
It's what happens when you get people in a room. And in today's age, and with all of this going on with technology, and obviously COVID didn't help, but a lot of the things have reverted to the likes of what this is, a Zoom or a phone call or something like that, which is grand whenever you're an Atlantic Ocean apart. But it's one thing I've struggled with here is having the ability or convincing people to meet face to face. And that can be whether it's casting directors or agents or whatever it might be. I don't think that we're lacking in terms of a reason to meet. We have various film festivals here in Ireland, which are quite acclaimed. You've got Galway, you've got Foyle Film Festival, Cork International, Kerry International, Dublin International. There's fairly substantial film festivals here, and there's a small portion of them which are academy qualifying, which are really big festivals. It's just getting people to attend these festivals. Some people just won't attend if they don't have work to showcase. It's a big commitment to attend a festival and get the accommodation and all of this stuff for a week or however long these things last. So sometimes you'll get lucky and just bump into someone that you're a fan of. And sometimes people won't attend these things even if they do have work in it. So for me, I suppose it's just meeting these people whenever they have a reason to attend something. And there lately, I was down in Fastnet in Cork, in Skull, and just bumping into people on the street there, the likes of Aidan Gillen, Donald Gleeson, these guys that are literally flying high around the place, just walking about Skull. That's the thing. A lot of people will not attend events. Even if they have a film, they'll say, look, it's showing here, and they mightn't go and attend it in person. I am a massive advocate for attending every festival within reason, if I have the means, whether that's locally around Ireland, around Europe, or the likes of North America, because it's just one of those things. You never know who you're going to meet or what might come of it, and then you just might end up on a podcast someday.
I'm going to shift from a discussion of the film festival, which sounded like a great experience for you and for me. And big thanks to Solas Nua for putting everything together and putting us all in the same room. But tell me what happened subsequent to that. Now, we were talking about your film, Dear Imelda. It was well received at the film festival. And as I recall, you had just, I believe, inked a deal with NITV, Network Ireland Television. So talk about the distribution of the film and what happened after that.
Since then, it was just before I'd headed to DC, I'd heard from NITV that they had sold it a company called SAMANSA in Japan, which is a massive short film streaming platform that I hadn't heard of. But it's huge over there, and short film content is equally as massive over there. So since then, we've been streaming in Japan, which has been crazy for us because at the minute, nowhere in Europe or Ireland or any other part of the world can actively watch this thing right now besides the people in Japan until another sale happens. So for us, it's been incredible to be on this massive platform and to see how they market our film on their social media, which is obviously in a completely different language. It's a completely different culture. And I found myself scrolling, translating comments from people on the film and trying to work out what are they saying. Do they like it? Do they not like it? Fortunately, a lot of the stuff has been, most of it, all of it has been positive. And it's quite interesting how Irish humour is somehow able to translate literally on the other side of the world to a completely different culture and still resonate. That has been a really magic thing for us to see our work go this far from home and still to be able to be enjoyed by people. And the thing is, we'll never be able to sort of meet them. Hopefully at some stage, I'd love to attend a festival there and see in person what the reaction to the film is. But at the moment, it's just been a lot of comments and online interaction, which has been lovely. And we've been quite fortunate with Network Ireland Television to attend a few more film festivals.
which they've kindly submitted us to. So we were able to travel to London because we were part of the St. Patrick's Day celebrations in Trafalgar Square. So the film screened there with around 100,000 people that day, which was madness. I've never seen anything like that in London. And shortly after that, then we travelled to Luxembourg. And then a couple of weeks later, we travelled to Brussels, which was lovely. And we got to see a bit of those cities across Europe. And then we came back and travelled to Skull and Cork down to Fastnet, where we were nominated for Best Screenplay, which was lovely, given the sheer amount of films that are submitted that film and the sheer amount of films that are included. I think there's around 300 films shown over the course of 4 or 5 days during that festival. So to get down to the last handful was lovely, as was all the connections we were able to make when we were down there.
So now what? Okay. Is the film festival circuit over now for Dear Imelda, and what's the next moves?
It's nearing the end, Martin. So I think at the moment we're still waiting to hear back from maybe 12 festivals. And each of them will have their own unique notification date, one of which is today. So you literally sit waiting on a yes or no. And I suppose next confirmed we know of is that we're heading to Louisiana in August.
Excellent.
I've never been there.
Mm-hmm.
No idea what to expect. No idea if I can even get there. But if I can get there, I'll be there for a film festival out there. And then we're heading to Galway in September for a film festival there called Shorelines Arts. And we've just heard now that we're finally confirmed for an airline later this year. But I can't say anything about what airline that is, where it will be, what the route will be until we're able to make that announcement. But it's been a lovely couple of months for this film from January onwards, really. And a lot of it wouldn't have been possible without distribution. There's only so much you can do on your own. And I'm one of those people who will try to do everything on my own if I can. But it's been lovely to get the support of Network Ireland Television and to do all the promo we've been doing recently. We were on Ireland AM Breakfast Show, which was my first TV appearance. And then we were on UTV Life up here in the north, which was another TV appearance. And then some radio and just various news outlets. So everyone, and even the general public, have just been so supportive of everything. And we're so appreciative of that because they haven't seen the film. So they're supporting something they don't even know what they're supporting, but they're just happy and excited for us, which is a lovely thing, you know.
So I'm delighted to hear that the film is still making the rounds in film festivals, so that will be other opportunities for people again to see the film. I'm also struck by, and I mentioned this originally when we talked, that I'm old enough to have gone to the movie theater and seen a short before a feature film. That is obviously something that we generally don't experience anymore. But I'm struck by how the airlines now have become a major distribution point for film. And I myself, when I travel, I always enjoy watching the short films there because they're these beautiful little pieces of work. They're more akin to in my view, a short story rather than a full-blown novel. And then I'm also intrigued by the fact that you have distribution in Japan and there's an online demand there. Is there an equivalent service in the United States or in continental Europe, which are possibilities on that front for short film? Or is this something specific to Japanese culture that they embrace the short film more maybe than other places?
I don't know about the background of it, Martin. I know that SAMANSA was initially constructed in Japan and that they have branched into the States. So they have now started SAMANSA US.
Interesting.
Which is the US equivalent of that company for short film content. Besides that company, I don't know of any other company as large as this promoting solely short films. But you're starting to see it more and more. There's Netflix are starting to create their own short films. So there must be an appetite for this shorter based content. And I suppose in today's era with all the TikToks and the attention span somewhat dipping a little bit. People are looking for content that they can watch, but at the same time sort of scroll passively on their phone and not really miss anything. I'm much more of the opinion of, if I create work, I want it to be seen and appreciated, ideally in a cinema-based environment. That's where I think the work needs to be seen in order to be appreciated. Unfortunately, for short films, that's just never going to happen. The best you will get is to be included in a film festival, which is going to be in one of those environments. Other than that, someone's going to be watching it on a phone, on a laptop, on a TV, and things might be missed. They might not see everything you want them to see or hear everything you want them to hear. But that's just the way of the world right now.
Yeah, and I was struck when we were in DC by the wonderful theatre that we got to sit in to watch all the films. So Solas Nua have a relationship with AFI, which is the theatre that we were in, and I can't imagine a much more comfortable place to watch a film. It really added to the experience for me. So I think that there's a shout out there for next year's film festival. You got to go down there and just enjoy the pleasure of seeing a film in the best possible environment, in my view.
Absolutely. No, the venue there was incredible. And I believe, chatting to someone, it was closed for years, and then they decided to completely refurbish the place. But it has to be one of the most stunning theatres I've ever sat in.
Yeah. So what's next now? After the film festival thing, is there other projects in the hopper, or what are you looking at?
That's the only writing I've done, Martin, is to attempt to write my first feature, which is just such a massive challenge, because if it was a short film, it would have been done by now. And I found myself at the 40-page mark, and you're trying to create plot lines and character arcs and all of this stuff. So I'm finding it a real challenge, to put it lightly. I think now that I've done 4 short films, that this is what I want to venture into, and which will be a massive undertaking because it will take funding. It isn't something that myself and my cousin Arón can fund anymore, and he's got his own scripts at the minute that he's trying to get funded, and we're very much trying to do stuff together, because Dear Imelda was a real production that we collaborated on, where I wrote, he directed, we co-produced, we co-funded, and it just worked with the pair of us. So we've been pretty much agreed that moving forward we want to continue to work together. So he's got some scripts a lot more further on than my script is, and I think that's where we're veering to next, will be the feature world, which will be an hour-and-a-half movie that hopefully we get some funding for, we're able to shoot it, and then able to travel the world to promote it, to get eyes on it. That would be exciting.
So we're looking forward to seeing what comes out of your creative efforts. And I know at times it's daunting and there'll be stops and starts in between, but I feel pretty confident that we're going to see a finished product down the line.
And we'll see, Martin. Thank you. It's been a tough slog just to get eyes on stuff, to get the distribution, to get all these things that you want and you need: composers, actors, locations, all of that stuff. It's been a massive undertaking, every bit of it, but it's definitely worth it whenever you get to the end and are able to see everything together. Yeah, just massive thank you to everybody I was able to collaborate with so far on this project. And look, fingers crossed I'm able to make something again and to do it all again, because I just enjoy every part of it, from the initial writing to filming the thing to all the post-production and then the marketing. It's never ending. And I was chatting to Arón about this recently, in that we're still actively working on this thing, because we're always marketing it all the time. There's always something to be tinkered with or created, or an image to be created, a laurel, something like that, to promote an upcoming gig or a screening. And you couldn't do it if you didn't love it. There would be no point. And honestly, I love every part of it, and all the people I've worked with have made it incredibly easy for me.
So with that, we will say au revoir again, and look forward to have another opportunity to chat as the next project comes online. But regardless, hope to see you over this side of the ocean again in the not too distant future. So on behalf of our listeners, thanks so much for allowing us to get some insight into how one essentially starts out in the movie business, the mechanics of making a short film, of not simply just making it, but also banging the doors down to get distribution. It's been really, for me, an insightful set of conversations, and I hope it's been helpful for you.
Thank you. Definitely really enjoyed the chat, Martin.
Hey, it's Martin. I hope you enjoyed those conversations with Declan Curran and got a sense of what it takes to make a short film like Dear Imelda. I don't doubt we'll be seeing more of Declan in the future. He has a real love of the form and the drive to succeed and smash through the many obstacles faced when making and promoting a film. Make sure you check the show notes for links to Declan's prior films and a preview for Dear Imelda. And if you do see it popping up on an airline or elsewhere, do yourself a favor of giving it a watch. It's a treat. Finally, if you haven't already done so, make sure you're signed up for our newsletter to find all the latest about Irish Stew and the guests we feature. Visit irishstewpodcast.com and on our homepage, enter your email address. And an important note in this era, your information will not be shared or sold elsewhere. And until the next time, this is Martin Nutty, and you've been listening to the Irish Stew Podcast. Irish Stew is produced by John Lee, Martin Nutty, and Bill Schultz. Editing, mixing, and mastering by Bill Schultz. Music on Irish Stew was composed and performed by Rosa Nutty, with Donald Bowens on drums, Cathal O'Riordan on bass and synthesizer. For more on Rosa Nutty's music, please visit rosanutty.com.